Inside a bustling cafe in downtown Boston, polished marble tables shimmered under golden morning light. Emma Collins sat nervously across from the tall man she had just met on a blind date. Her thrift store dress, too simple for the room. The waiter appeared with a pen poised. Emma opened the menu, her throat tightening as she saw the prices. Heat climbed her cheeks. With a trembling voice, she whispered, "Asterisk. I can't afford coffee." Asterisk. Silence thickened around them, but instead of judgment, Daniel Harris leaned back, glanced at the waiter, and said warmly, "Asterisk. 2 espressos, please." Asterisk. Then he turned to her with a gentle smile, as if nothing had broken, only begun. He didn't let her apology tumble out. He rescued it before it could be born. "If it makes you feel better," he said, resting his forearms loosely on the table. "I'm terrible at ordering. I always want the thing I didn't pick. So you just saved me from indecision." She swallowed, grateful and unsettled by how easy he made this. His eyes were the kind that rested on people rather than scanning them for exits, and his voice had a calm that made chaos feel suddenly negotiable. Emma focused on the tiny silver spoon at her place setting, and the way her hands were steadier than she expected. "It's not the price," she lied, because lying, when you're poor, often feels like good manners. "I'm just not much of a coffee person." "That's okay," he said. "I'm here for the company." "Emma," she offered. Even though he already knew Nora had texted him her name and a winking warning not to blow this, he had answered with a thumbs up and a question mark, which made Nora call Emma, giggling to say the guy used emojis like a dad. Emma assumed that meant middle-aged, slightly boring. Probably safe. "Daniel," he said, "and full disclosure, I do use emojis like a dad." "You have kids?" she asked, pretending her heart hadn't performed a small cartwheel she didn't authorize. "One," he said, warmth migrating into his smile. "Mia. She's 8. She can beat me at Connect 4 without even looking." A single dad. Something in Emma's chest unclenched gentleness, recognized gentleness. "I teach reading at the community center some afternoons," she said. "I've seen children invent ways to win games that don't exist yet." The espressos arrived, polite cups of midnight with a crescent of tawny foam. Daniel slid one toward her as if passing a candle, a small, steady flame that might make the table feel like a circle of safety instead of a stage. "I'm sorry about before," she said, because politeness and truth sometimes have to share a sentence. "My mom's not well. I pay for her meds and I count things. Bus rides, eggs, hours, pennies. Today I didn't count this." He listened the way people listen when they know attention is a currency. "Thank you for telling me," he said. "I know how hard it is to say the unpolished version of your life out loud." "What's your unpolished version?" she asked. He thought about it, as if he had options, and wanted to hand her the truest one. "I'm better at fixing problems than preventing them. I miss trains because I stay to help strangers pick up the papers they dropped. I burn pancakes. And sometimes I work so much I forget what day it is. And then Mia tells me. And I pretend I knew." "Pretend is also a kind of love," Emma said before she could stop herself. And he laughed. The kind of laugh that makes walls lean in. She expected questions about her grad program and got them. She expected pity and did not. When she spoke about student teaching in a classroom with more children than dictionaries, about the way a reluctant reader will finally pronounce a word, and then smile like the sky just remembered it was blue, Daniel's attention assembled itself around her sentences like scaffolding. She found herself telling him about her mother, Janet, whose heart skipped beats as if it didn't trust the world to hold it. She told him about 2 jobs, 3 if you counted hope as work, and about the calendar taped to their fridge, squares filled with appointments, and highlighted in colors borrowed from optimism. Through it all, Daniel didn't offer solutions. He resisted the easy reach for, "Let me help." Instead, he asked for details that made her feel seen while she spelled out the ordinary heroism of getting through days. They finished their cups. She watched his hand hover over the bill, and then settle, decisive and unperformed. Outside, on Tremont Street, the wind nudged them into the sidewalk's flow. She expected a quick goodbye, the kind of exit designed to give both people an escape route if they needed it. Instead, he gestured toward the common. 10 minutes, he asked. We can walk. If you're not late anywhere. She could have been. She could have sprinted to the bus that would lurch her toward the diner and its fluorescent loneliness. But she didn't. They crossed into the park, where the trees were caught mid-conversation with the sky. He matched her pace without making a show of doing it. Blind dates, he said, half grinning. I promised my cousin I'd try. He said I was turning into a monk. Monks make excellent tea, Emma said. I don't know about their espresso. What about you? He asked. Nora is relentless, she said. She threatened to sign me up for a reality show called Will She Ever Go Out? He winced. I would watch that. Please don't, she said, and he chuckled. When they parted at the edge of a curb, he didn't ask for her number in a way that put her on the spot. He held up his phone as if offering a small raft. If you want, he said. She put her number in and walked away, feeling taller by a half-inch. She hadn't earned anywhere except in this exact hour. The week that followed was a collage. Emma teaching phonics with paper crowns. Daniel standing in a conference room making a joke so dry the entire board laughed 2 minutes late. Emma helping her mother sort pills into days like beads. Daniel sewing a button onto Mia's cardigan with stitches that looked like a sturdy, shy constellation. They texted. He sent her a photograph of Mia's science project, 2 jars of sprouting beans on a windowsill captioned, Our lab is accepting funding in the form of stickers. Asterisk. Emma sent back a picture of construction paper crowns with the message, My kingdom is held together by glue. And please don't sneeze. Asterisk. On Friday, he asked if she could meet for a quick walk at the library courtyard. No pressure. She said yes before her self-protective voice remembered to audition the word. The afternoon air was clean. The kind of clean that made old buildings look freshly invented. They traded small stories like kids trade Halloween candy careful. Gently proud, he told her Mia had a way of talking to stray dogs that made them forget how the world had chewed them. Emma told him about a boy in her class who hid kindness like a coin in his shoe. Come to the community center tomorrow, she heard herself say. We're hosting a book swap. No cameras. I promise. He came. He stacked boxes. He knelt to listen to a 4-year-old explain why dinosaurs would love trucks. He didn't try to meet everyone. He met people. When he laughed with the director, a woman who could balance a budget and a tantrum with equal grace, Emma watched his face and felt that half-inch inside her bloom to a full inch. He didn't tell her who he was because he didn't know how to tell her without cracking the quiet they were building. She didn't ask because she sensed that if the truth was a door, they were both still finding the keyhole. And so, the truth found them. On Tuesday, Emma stayed late at the diner to cover a sick coworker's shift. She left past midnight and cut over to avoid the bar traffic. A black car idled at a curb. Security guards lived at the doorway of a building that announced itself with chrome and glass. She might have kept walking if the man stepping out of the car had been anyone else. But it was Daniel's suit this time, a gravity to his movement that people around him seemed to understand instinctively. Phones appeared. Heads turned. He said something to a woman in a navy pantsuit, and she nodded as if he had given her a verdict she wanted. The letters over the revolving doors were proud and polished. Harris Technologies. Asterisk. Asterisk. Emma stood in the seam of 2 worlds, the one that counted bus fares and the one that calculated stock splits, and felt both dizzy and still. She watched him disappear inside and felt the word CEO settle over the outline of the man she had been holding in her hands like a secret. She went home and washed her hands until the hot water ran cold. He texted before dawn. You know now. Asterisk. She typed, deleted, typed, deleted. Then sent. I know. Asterisk. Another text. I wanted to tell you. I just asterisk. She stopped him with, come by after 8. Mom. Naps then. Asterisk. He came with grocery bag politeness, as if arriving were a privilege he had asked the day for. He sat at the tiny kitchen table, and Janet, who still had a wit so sharp it could slice an apple, looked him over like a nurse evaluating a pulse. You, his boss? she asked Emma. I'm nobody's boss, Daniel said, smiling the self-diminishing smile of men who know power and mistrust it. Good, Janet said, closing her eyes for a nap that would be 15 minutes and feel like rain. When they were alone in the narrow kitchen, the refrigerator humming its one-note hymn, Emma said, You could have told me. I should have told you, he said. But I wanted to keep what we were growing away from the part of my life that puts names on things and owns them. People behave differently around a title. You didn't. I behave differently around a price tag, she said. Not mocking herself, just naming the bruise. He nodded. Listen. I won't pretend I can make the world gentle. I can try not to make it worse. He left without pushing, which somehow moved her a little closer to staying. News moves like a river, and like a rumor it rolled over them, carrying a photograph taken outside the library courtyard, where Daniel had leaned a head's breadth closer to hear Emma's quiet laugh. Mystery woman with tech titan, the caption decided. The diner manager found a spine and told her this could be a distraction for the brand of eggs and pie. She turned in her apron and took the back exit, where Daniel was waiting with a coffee carrier he held up, as if surrendering. He offered the receipt and the cups in the same breath. Both are proof. Don't be my scandal, she said, not unkindly. Be my life, he answered, not dramatically. He invited her to his house that night. And she went, because saying no had begun to taste like self-sabotage. His place was big, but not ostentatious, like a well-made sentence that refused adjectives. Mia barreled into the foyer with a scrapbook of Polaroids and stickers. Hi, Mia said, then performed an inspection with her entire face. You're Emma. You're the reading lady. Do you like cats? I grew up with a cat who thought the couch was a mountain, Emma said. Mia nodded, satisfied. You can stay. Dinner was pasta that remembered to be comforting. Mia told a story about losing a tooth at recess and fearing the tooth fairy wouldn't find her at Grandma's. Daniel offered commentary from the dad's balcony of the story. Emma listened and learned to think in threes: father, daughter, woman, hovering at the edge of possibility. When Mia went to bed, Emma stood in the hallway and stared at a wall of frames. Mia at 3 in a raincoat. A woman with laughing eyes, Daniel's late wife. Hannah holding a fat, proud baby. Daniel at a ribbon cutting disguised as a guy who had shown up to carry boxes. She didn't feel compared to Hannah. She felt invited to honor what was tender and already gone. At the company gala, PR begged him to walk in alone. Investors appreciated predictability and the absence of unfamiliar variables. Daniel didn't do variables. He did people. He offered Emma his arm, and together they learned the choreography of being stared at. He held her hand like he had promised the air. Not the cameras. That he would. Later, at a community launch for an education initiative Harris Technologies was funding, the lights failed. The auditorium exhaled one nervous sound. Children began to squirm. Someone at the back cursed softly about the generator. Daniel stepped into the hush with a flashlight app and a voice that had soothed a child after a bad dream. Everyone's okay, he said. We're going to do this, the old-fashioned way. He looked to Emma. Can you? He didn't finish. She did. She gathered the kids on the floor near the stage and began a story. Her voice a lantern thrown forward. The tale was about a town that lost its electricity and found its voices. Children answered questions. They invented endings. They forgot to be bored. By the time the lights came back, the room was warmer than bulbs could make it. When the applause came, it folded itself around Daniel and then redirected itself at Emma. She flushed and shook her head at him. He shrugged as if to say, See? This is why. Not everyone appreciated unscripted good. The board had an agenda that didn't include romances vetted by first graders. A director named Vincent Kincaid, unblinking, careful hair suggested in careful language that public perception needed shepherding. He said words like optics and narrative drift. He all but handed Daniel a list of acceptable partners and events. Is this a company? Or a country club? Daniel asked. Polite enough to pass, but sharp enough to cut. It's a public trust, Vincent said. And public trusts require public choreography. "I'm not a dance," Daniel said. "I'm a person who owns a company that builds things. The things will stand on their own." They did. But the gossip mill always craves new grain. A photo of Emma pushing Mia on a swing at the park caught internet wind. The headline christened Emma a placeholder stepmom. Emma ignored it until it found her at the pharmacy. A stranger's voice curved with delight. "You've moved up fast, sweetheart." Emma turned, met a pair of eyes glittering with misery disguised as mirth, and felt the old shame try to climb her spine like ivy. She walked out without buying what she came for, and went to the river to outrun the voice in her head that still sometimes used her mother's worry lines to speak. Daniel found her on the bench because he had learned the map of her places. He sat without asking what he was sitting into. "I keep waiting for the world to get less noisy," he said. "It never does. So we can move or be still." "Which one do you want?" "Still," she said. "Just for a minute." They were, and the minute was kind. After that, she chose more deliberately, not to attend events that required her to be an argument, not to accept help that came with a receipt attached to gratitude, not to tolerate endless small humiliations presented as jokes. She kept teaching. Her mother stabilized on new meds. Mia started writing stories in stapled booklets that smelled like pencil lead and triumph. Daniel carved space out of his calendar for the kind of minutes a life needs to be lived rather than just run. When Daniel did the one public thing that felt owed to say clearly, before both friendly and skeptical witnesses, he did it without spectacle. At the opening of a new learning lab, he walked up to the mic and said, "We built this because failing a child is not an option. We funded it because it's our job to leave the city a little more intelligent than we found it. And I'm standing here with Emma Collins, who teaches me daily that the smallest stories are the ones that keep us human." He didn't say, "my girlfriend," didn't label her like a product. He said her name, the way names deserve to be said in a room that might forget otherwise. People clapped because the lab was beautiful and because truth, spoken plainly, stands up on its own legs. Vincent Kincaid clapped last, the slow clap of a man who takes attendance. It didn't matter. Children were already pressing noses to screens and saying, "Whoa," with reverence. Later, in a quiet cafe, not unlike the one where they started, Daniel slid a small box across the table. It wasn't velvet. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple, the way doors are simple when you know what's on the other side. Emma looked at him and he said, "This isn't a headline. It's a question." She opened it and found a ring designed with the kind of restraint expensive things sometimes forget they can have. "The day we met," he said, "you told the truth that cost you your dignity in a room that wasn't built to give it back. I want to spend the rest of my life building rooms where you never have to choose between truth and dignity again. Will you marry me?" Emma covered her mouth and laughed, because joy often travels disguised as laughter when it's trying to outrun tears. "Yes," she said. "On one condition." "Name it." "We go back to the cafe where I said I couldn't afford coffee," she said. "And you order 2 again." He did. They sat in the same corner, different flowers in the vase, same quality of light. And when the waiter came by, Daniel asked for 2 espressos. The waiter nodded, oblivious to the sacrament. Daniel turned to Emma, and exactly as if nothing had broken and everything had begun, he smiled. On the day they married, Mia read a poem she wrote about 3 people and a city and a cup that never empties because everyone keeps refilling it for everyone else. Janet stood up during the reception and said she'd like to make a toast, and then she forgot her toast and cried into her napkin, and everyone cheered anyway. Nora danced with the engineer who used to sit at the back of meetings and draw gears in his notebook, and who now had a crush he was learning to admit. There were no fireworks, just string lights and the particular brightness of a Saturday that had kept its promises. When they cut the cake, the topper was 2 tiny porcelain espresso cups, whose handles touched like 2 parentheses, holding something precious between them. Years later, when people asked how it started, Emma would tell the truth, plain and unadorned. A girl said she couldn't afford coffee, and a man ordered 2 and smiled. When they asked for the secret as if love were a bank vault, Daniel would chuckle and say, "Don't let your coffee get cold. Don't let your hands fall apart. And never let 'I can't afford' be the end of a sentence, only the part where someone who loves you says, Then we'll share. And we'll sit. And we'll start from here.